Playing online and on smart devices. Now on London Scottie Radio, it's podcast time. I'm George Matlock. Welcome to Scottie MOT, the health and wellbeing show from London's Scottie Club. A week delayed after that amazing hookup we had with Pavel Semik in Ukraine last week, where he told us about the plight of Scotties in a war zone. Pavel promised to keep us informed about other developments from his country in the weeks ahead. Well, we bring back Jacky Ash of Ashgate Kennels and Grooming in Fife, Somerset. So first of all, a big hello to you, Jacky.
Hello, and thank you very much for having me back.
It's a pleasure, and everyone's asking for you, so I had no choice.
Good.
I had to bring you back. I've been overruled by the listeners. Okay, no, I'm joking. You're very welcome. It's great to have you and your time here. So let's crack on with the show. We've got quite a lot to get through, but just thought I'd share with you and indeed with listeners who may not know this, that Jacky hand strips both Scotties and Westies. And you might be interested to know this, Jacky, that that in Kiev, they actually had until this year a black and white parade each May. And this is where they walk Scotties and Westies through the Ukrainian capital. Cancelled this year, no surprises there, but we are looking forward to the victory procession, which could, the organisers say, be as early as 2023. What do you say about that?
That's amazing. That's fabulous.
Isn't it?
I'd really like to see that.
Well, I think they're going to do something really special for this one because I've already sort of recommended that they put little bandanas on the dogs.
Definitely.
And the black ones should have the yellow, and then all the all the Westies and any Wheatons, Scotties and so on, they should wear like the light blue, and that would be if you see a flood of these walking down the street, it'll look like their flag. It would just be amazing.
Yes, it would be. Yes,
it's such a rousing thing to do. So we wish them the very, very best for the future and for that to become a reality. So, Jacky, in today's programme, we'll be talking about two very topical topics. Well, never an untopical topic here on Scottie MOT, of course. We're talking about the results of our cost of a Scottie poll. That's right, we asked about the cost of living, and we all know it's going up, but what does it actually cost to bring up a Scottish Terrier? We'll be finding out with our poll a little later in the programme. But first, let's take you to the summer. The days are getting longer, the grass is getting longer, and guess what? The ticks are back. And, I'm kind of itching to talk about this topic, but without putting too sore a point on it, Jacky, am I right in saying that this is Lyme Awareness Month?
It is, yes. Yes, May is when the little devils all start waking up again after their winter hibernation. Mainly sheep ticks and deer ticks are the ones that, we come across and our dogs come across. So it's becoming... It's a fairly small problem, if you like, in the big scheme of human diseases, but it is quite a nasty one, and certainly it's one that we should be more aware of as dog owners. Yeah,
and the Lyme disease itself is something that the dogs don't get, but we could get, and therefore it's dangerous for us as owners.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's carried by the tick. All ticks carry certain bacteria, and there are a number of different diseases that you can get from a tick bite. But Lyme disease is probably the most common one in the UK, Europe and Northern America.
And it's I know that on the reassuring side, only 1 in 10 ticks carry Lyme disease. But of course, if you're unlucky and you're in that, the victim of one, it can get quite nasty. But tell us how can we rescue the situation? What can, apart from avoiding long grass and places where reindeer graze, what if we do get a tick? What's the best solution?
Okay, certainly the first thing to do is to remove that tick correctly, and that's either from yourself, or from your dog. You need to get a tick hook, which you can get from your vet or your groomer, or you can get online very easily. They're not expensive. And I always carry one with us when we're dog walking, just in case, because the quicker you can get it off the skin, the better. Once you've got it off the skin, if you're in a position to do so, pop that tick into a plastic bag and pop it in the freezer for a couple of weeks. Because if you are going to have a reaction, or your dog is going to have a reaction to a tick, could be up to a fortnight before that really, you can really notice it. But in humans, what will happen is that you'll start getting an infection around the site, and it's one of those things where you start to see a circular rash might appear. You might start feeling very tired for no explained reason, and if you get any of those symptoms, and there are obviously more, so you can check this on online. By having that tick in a bag, when you go and see your doctor, take the tick, and then they can get that tick analysed at the laboratory and find out if it is one of the carrying ticks, and if it is, they will treat you accordingly for the Lyme disease.
Right. Okay, well, that's very good advice. So anyone who's concerned, that's the best thing. Put it in one of those sealable bags like you put in freezer bags and whatever, so that it can't escape, and then get it down to a laboratory to be tested.
This is Jenny. I listen to London Scotty Radio podcasts when walking my lovely Scotty Logan. It's the perfect accompaniment to a leisurely dog walk.
I'm Elaine. I like to listen to London Scotty podcast while chilling with a glass of wine and preparing dinner.
It's Max here. I listen to the podcasts and the bubble bath for fab tips.
This is Zelda. I like to do lino cuts of Scotties. That's what I do when I'm listening to the podcast. I listen to them for inspiration.
This is Fraser, the London Scotty Club podcast. It's a great way to end the day.
Okay, Jacky, so from that topic, let's go on to the big one, which is about our recent online poll. So this was conducted among members of London Scotty Club. We asked members if they could tell us how much money do they think it costs to own a Scottish Terrier over 5 years, over 10 years and over 15 years. You'll be interested in these results because even I was quite taken aback. But let's go through what the poll showed. So 60% of our respondents said that it would cost them £20,000 over 5 years to have a Scottish Terrier. Remember that they're putting into this the cost of a puppy and daycare, dog walking, all kinds of things would need to be included in that figure. 30% said 40,000, 10% said 60,000. No one said £80,000. Jacky, what do you reckon?
Well, I'm going to conservatively go in the middle. Okay, so I'm going with the 30% at 40,000.
Right, okay. Are you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Drum roll. We're not going to hold this out as long as the Eurovision Song Contest voting, which was painful at the weekend. Right, well, I'll tell you right away. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. It was actually a surprising £81,085. What do you say to that?
I'm absolutely shocked.
Isn't it incredible?
I really am very shocked.
Isn't it incredible? Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I was a long way out.
You were, but you weren't alone. 30% agreed with you. Okay, so let's look at 10 years then. So this is the cost of a Scottie over 10 years. Again, you include the previous costs where relevant. So obviously the cost of a puppy has to be included. Now, over 10 years, 60% said it would cost them £100,000. 30% said £150,000. 10% said £175,000. And yes, no one said £200,000. Jacky, what do you reckon?
Right, well, this time you're not going to catch me out. So I'm not going with the majority here at all. I'm going to go on my own, where nobody said it. I'm going for £200,000.
Right, to boldly go where no human has ever gone before.
I'm going for it.
Right, well, you certainly should be docking with the Starship Enterprise at any moment now, actually. You are, I'm afraid, not quite right, but you're consistently wrong by around £40,000.
It's nice to know I'm consistent in my wrongness.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't it warming to know? The actual figure was, and this is such a humbling number, £155,700.
Good grief.
I was totally thrown by that when I saw these numbers. Okay, the final painful poll, a question I've got is over 15 years. So again, we put in all the figures from the previous two polls into this one. We accumulate it. So over 15 years, a Scottie would cost you, this is what the respondents said, 66%, that's two-thirds, said £210,000. 11% said £220,000. 22% said £230,000. £230,000, and no one said £250,000. Jackie, for the last time, what do you reckon? Are you going to phone a friend, or are you going to go for it?
No, you're not going to catch me out again. No, I'm going with the 22%, because we've all decided that this is the correct figure. So 22% of us are all saying 230, and I'm with them.
Okay,
I'm
well,
crossing everything here.
I've got some fabulous news for you here, because, well, first of all, let me just say we cannot promote alcohol on this programme, but you may still want a stiff glass of hard water from Thames River. Well, I'll tell you this: you were only barely £2,000 out.
Oh, phew!
Isn't that
Yeah,
in the
I've
back of the
redeemed
net?
myself. Thank you, 22%.
It's great to win, isn't it? It's just great to win. Well, it does feel like you're winning here, because it is a withering, a wiltering, a whatever other W you can find in the alphabet. It is, in fact, or a dictionary in this case, £228,355. You could buy a Bentley motor car for that money.
Yeah, you could. I don't want one. But no, I'd stick with my Scottie, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
You are in the majority there, I think.
Yeah.
The majority of 99.9% recurring, I'm sure. I'm sure there'll be somebody who'll be tempted by a Bentley. But you're right. It looks like everyone would agree with you. Kath certainly said the value a Scottie can bring to your life is immeasurable. Certainly true. But the figures of bringing one up are certainly not immeasurable. They are just incredibly high. And I suppose, to ask you for what you make of these numbers, first of all, and then I'll sort of give you my thoughts.
Well, obviously, we've had a bit of fun sort of playing with the percentages there. But in all reality and being serious, I think it really does bring home how much it costs to raise a dog properly. We know that in the last, couple of years with the lockdown and COVID, we've seen a real huge surge in dog ownership. And I just worry and wonder how many of those people actually know how much it's going to cost them to look after them, and are they going to end up in rescue because they haven't got the money? It is a real worry, I think.
Absolutely, and it's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of not to know how much it costs to bring up a dog. I don't think any of us really.
I had
certainly
absolutely
didn't.
no idea.
I had no idea before we started this.
We've had dogs for 50 years, and I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah. I'm sure there are some economists out there who've got dogs, maybe Scotties even. I bet you bottom dollar they didn't do these numbers. They certainly haven't figured this out, because if they had, it would have been quite a headline in the newspapers.
Yeah.
It could cost as much as this. It is really amazing. I have to say that in all cases, people went for the lowest option of 4. That I thought was very, very telling. People obviously, to me, this is how I interpret it anyway, that it shows frugality, people trying to save, trying to find economical ways of having a dog at home. Fair enough. But it also shows how much they underestimate the real costs. And in all cases, the real cost was way, way higher than what 60% so consistently went for, which was the lowest of the 4 options. Now, I should say that these numbers were collated between myself and Kath Marchbank, the welfare officer of STEC. So our big thanks to Kath for bringing all these numbers together as well. And I did the crunching of the numbers, and we had to rebase them for 5 years, for 10 years, and for 15. This is particularly pertinent because some of the things we had to include were things like the pet insurance. Well, they don't do it in nice compartments of 5 years, 10 years, and 15. It doesn't work like that. They give you a premium for the first 4 years, and then for years 5 to 7, and then years 8 to infinity. Well, that's kind of we then had to rebase it. So we've done all these numbers. We've accounted for all that, and I'm sure there's a few people who are listening saying, "Oh, but have you?" Yes, we have. I promise. We've done this several times over to make sure that the numbers do add up. The cost of a puppy alone, £3,000. Now, 2014, you could have got a black Scottish Terrier for as little as £650. Now, £3,000. Goes to show, even over that last 10 years, how the costs have gone up. Much of it, of course, during the 2 years of lockdown, it has to be said. If you can still get a puppy for £650, you might want to think twice. It could well be a puppy farm. And that comes with its own costs, which are something no owner wants to ever have to experience, I can assure you. So we looked at grooming. Again, there we have to accept there are regional differences between £280 and £400 per year is what it would cost. Where you would be grooming we're basing this on a groom of a cycle of around 7 weeks. We looked at vaccinations, worming, flea treatment, food, various other sundries that you might need to buy, certain things like toothpaste. I know this is a topic that you raised on Scottie MOT some months ago.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we had a lot of feedback from listeners. They really liked
good.
that.
I'm glad.
People really liked it. I think that was the show where we had a problem with the sound connection, but luckily we were able to get a transcript of the whole thing. So people have read it and really absorbed it. And I know a few people have actually taken up your advice and they've started
Excellent.
brushing the
I'm
dog's
glad
teeth.
because I'm glad because it is, it is really good for their health. So, anything. But you're quite right. I mean, all these things are really adding into the cost. And I suppose 20 years ago, you see, we wouldn't have done all of this for our animals. They would have led, quite a frugal little life. They would have had scraps from the table. And now we know so much more, and we know, what they need in order to thrive and, be healthy dogs. And so therefore the costs are higher, but probably justifiably so. I wouldn't want to go back to those days at all.
Well, no, exactly. So, I say all these numbers, folks, will be available alongside this particular episode of Scottie MOT, so you can look at it all very carefully and see how we've done the numbers. Everything's very much transparent here on this programme. Jacky, I just want to turn to you finally just to ask, I mean, you obviously run a business and, how has inflation impacted your service and how are you meeting the challenge?
Well, I think obviously with everybody else, our business, particularly the grooming side, is very heavy on the electricity use. Like everybody else, we're having to cut down on what we can. But in order to provide the safe service that we need to do, you can't do too much. I can't cut the aircon down too much because both dog and groomer, are going to be uncomfortable. But we use things like Showtech drying towels, for instance, which is something, listeners might be interested in looking at themselves. You wash your dog and you pop them in this towel and it really speeds up. It absorbs it absorbs everything off their coat. But things, we won't cut back on the quality of shampoos that we use, things like that, because I won't introduce parabens. I won't introduce bad products to the dogs. So it is hard. It is really hard. And then when a customer, is faced with an increase in their groom price, I can assure you that my profit margin on a groom is extremely low. We have to groom a lot of dogs, to make a living at it. So it may seem expensive to you, when you go and have your dog groomed, but if you factor in everything, I think probably if I make £8 to £10 on a groom, I would be thinking that was a really good groom.
So a margin as small as that? Yeah,
absolutely, because the cost of the product, to give you an idea, it cost me £50 to get a 5 litre bottle of shampoo. That would probably last me, I don't know, 60 washes.
Yep.
It's not many. But I don't want to cut back on that sort of thing. I don't want to start using cheap products, and hopefully most groomers will be the same as me. But at the end of the day, the end user is the one that's going to pay the price.
Absolutely. And I know that in very much in unison with other businesses and other retailers and suppliers, you're doing your best to try and keep the costs and the fees to end users as low as possible.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, you want to retain custom and you want people, particularly who've been loyal to you all these years, to stay with you, obviously.
It's also, as much as anything, it's for the welfare of the dog. If a lot of people are tempted to leave that little bit longer between grooms. And I find it, I understand it, don't get me wrong, I really understand it. We need to save money. But the cost to your dog is huge.
Yeah.
Those mats on the skin, they're walking around in pain every day if they're getting mats, under the armpits. And even if you are brushing your dogs well, a lot of people don't go down to the skin properly. So if you do need to cut costs and you do need to save money and you do need to increase the time between your grooms because of it, please go and have a chat with your groomer about it. They will advise you how to look after the coat in between grooms. And it's well worth a good chat. No groomer wants you to go away and stay away for 10 weeks, go back, and then they have to shave that dog off. talk to them. They will work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that sounds like very good advice. And indeed, that sort of dovetails of my final question to you today, which is, what can people do to economise? I know this is a difficult question because, you want to put the dog's interests first. And let's face it, a lot of people would rather economise on what they eat, but make sure that their dog has, a good breakfast or what have you. I mean, in some people actually call, having a pet kind of a recession-proof industry, which is why some of the big companies, of course, like Mars and people like that, are very keen to develop in pet health and well-being services, because it is such a good investment rate of return. But really, I mean, as Joe blogs and Mrs. blogs, I mean, what can we do as consumers? What can we do to economise? What do you think?
Personally, with my own dogs, I'm trying to economise all the time, but what I won't do is I don't cut back on the quality of their food, and I don't cut back on grooming and looking after them in that way, because I think it's false economy. Because if you do, you probably are going to end up at the vet more often, and therefore you're paying it for it on the other side. I think, for all of our health and well-being at the moment, including our dogs, try and get out and walk your dog as often as you can. Look after the dog, brush it through every day, but use that time as well as a well-being time. Your dog enjoys that interaction with you. Get on the floor with your dog and brush your dog through. You'll find it therapeutic. They will find it therapeutic. And it's also going to save you money in the long run, because your groomer hasn't got to do that work for you. So when you take your dog in, they can bath it. They don't need to use as much shampoo, because the coat is being looked after so well, and that in turn then helps us keep our costs down to you.
I think that's very, very wise advice. So thank you for that. And indeed, I mean, if you continue to feed your dog healthily and groom it to maintain its health, general health, you're less likely to go to the vet. So there's a saving already. And anyone who thinks, well, I can cut corners because I can go to the vet and then, the insurers will pay out and we'll sort of have an all new dog out of this. No, you won't, because what will happen, of course, is even if the vet is able to help your pet, you'll end up paying more in premiums on your pet insurance in the following year, because as soon as you make a claim, those premiums start to rise up, don't they?
But also, why should your pet be the one that's the experiment?
The suffering experiment.
Just do it right in the first place. And I think accept ownership of a dog is expensive. You've shown that tonight. Show it is expensive to have a dog. It's whether or not you put a value on that ownership.
I think a sort of a survival pack needs to be created. Maybe this is one for a charity like the Dogs Trust or someone else, perhaps, to look into. In these much more expensive times that we're living in, perhaps there is a list of, sort of a hot list of things that people really must continue to do for their dogs, and then things that perhaps are less important. So getting the balance right is never easy, because
that's right. I mean, you can, for instance, toys. I mean, sorry to go on about this, but it's one of my favourite subjects. Toys is a typical thing. That's where you can cut costs. A Scottie will love a milk bottle, a plastic milk bottle. Take the lid off it, take the label off it, and give it to them, and they will have an hour of absolute huge fun. I know you're not exactly recycling, but you can always pop it in the recycling afterwards. But
what's left of it?
Exactly. But the thing is, it's not costing you any more money. Pop a bit of pasta into an empty bottle, put the lid back on, and they're in heaven. All that noise. I mean, you might have to block your ears and warn your neighbours, but you don't have to spend money on expensive things like that. But feed them well, groom them well, entertain them, and give them your own time, I would say, is what my survival kit would hold.
Okay, very good. And I guess that the plastic bottles, I mean, are they safe to give to dogs? I mean, they're not likely to ingest them or anything like that.
I mean, obviously, if they ate the whole thing, I mean, it's not going to be very good for them. But I'm not advocating, leaving your dog with a plastic bottle all day.
Supervise. So give them
give them something to play with.
A bit of mental preoccupation, but
totally.
do it in a supervised way is what you're saying. Don't just leave them all day with it and go to work. That sort of thing. No. Okay.
No.
Right. Well, that's great. Well, Jacky, thank you very much for being our guest on the programme today. And it was really good to talk to you. And like we were all equally, completely dumbfounded by these numbers. So, all I can say is...
Well, I just feel as if I've been on some sort of quiz show tonight, and I was offered a Bentley, so I mean, I'm going to take you up on these,
Well, you turned it down. No, but you remember you turned down...
No, actually I did, you're quite right. I turned the Bentley down.
So somebody get this lady a Scottie, please. Hurry up. Yeah. You've got one in the cupboard. No, behind that shelf. No, there's a Scottie behind that shelf over there.
Not sure I can afford one actually anymore.
I'm just talking to the producer sorry, I didn't know we were still on air. Oh dear. I didn't know. I thought I was talking to the producer on my own there. I thought just get her a... No, it's not over. I'll talk to the producer later about this. Anyway, in the meantime, thank you so much for being on the programme. Big reminder to everyone who's listening that if you've got a question for Scottie MOT, you can be the star or your dog can be the star. Just go to our website and fill out the little questionnaire on our website where you can pose your question. You can include, of course, photographs if it would help us to look into your issue, or a short video if that helps. So just go to our website, scottie.scot. Is the easiest way to find it, and that will open that direct page where you've got a little questionnaire, tiny, just 2 or 3 questions to answer. And then what you put into that box, you're giving us the permission to rebroadcast as we pose the question to our esteemed guests, such as Jacky or Kath, as they alternate on Scottie MOT. Right, well, Jacky, on that note, I wish you a very good day and talk to you in about a month's time.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, everybody enjoy yourselves and keep watching out for those ticks and fleas.
Indeed. Happy Scotties to you all.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to London Scottie Radio. This and all our podcasts are available online at londonscottie.club. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe to us from your favourite podcast player app. Also visit us on YouTube for fun videos. And if you have a Scottish Terrier in London or nearby, be sure to join us.